All right, we're going to get started momentarily. This is what happens when summer really starts. All right. We are there. Yes, yes, we are good. I counted, that's why, yeah. All right. Welcome, everyone. It is Thursday, May 26th. The Racial Justice Task Force, we are calling this meeting to order at 6:31 p.m. Can I get a roll call, please?
Certainly may. Mariam Ar-Rahim. Sarah Balgoyan. Lynn Branham. Pam Birdside. Brenda Butts. Sam Bindum.
Here.
Rosita Bird. Ellen D. Alex Evans. Amy Felty. David Harbor. Ryan Hughes, present. Artist James.
Here.
Esther Pat.
Here.
Carolyn Randolph. Henry Ross.
Here.
Kevin Snyder. Here. Susan Silver. Here. Demario Turner.
Here.
And Gerald Walter. Here. Thank you.
Okay. If you haven't seen the agenda, you can take a look at it, and then we'll have a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right. All in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, the same. Motion to approve the agenda carries. All right. Our next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from May 12th, 2016. Go ahead and take time to review it if you need to. If not,
I move approval.
Second.
okay. All in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, the same. Approval of the minutes for May 12th passes. Okay, we have white forms in the back. If there are any, I'm running through the motions. If there are if there are any people who are interested in public participation, please fill out a form, bring it to the front. Okay. We are going to move on to the next item on our agenda, task force member updates. Sarah.
Yeah, should we talk about the community gathering?
Yes, please.
Okay. Artists just passed out some flyers. They're just samples right now, wanting to get some feedback, still work in progress. We did confirm the time for the 23rd at Love Corner from 6:30 to 8:30, kind of our median point there. We had talked about 6 to 8 or 7 to 9. And then artists also was able to secure possibly Salem Baptist Church for that Saturday, the 25th. Both places have a fee associated with them. Artists, did you find out how much for Salem? Is it about the same?
I would say so. I talked to
Yeah,
Reverend
thanks.
early on. He mentioned the fee. I just
Yeah. Yeah.
But he said whatever it is, he'll work with us.
Okay.
So I'm asking probably around
What? So 150 is the fee for Love Corner, and the ACLU has committed 100 towards that, right, Esther?
Yes, we will, although we would like our name on the flyer,
Yep,
please.
that's a change we'll make. And the NAACP is considering donating towards the event as well?
Yeah.
Did that run through the,
I can confirm in camp,
you can confirm NCAM for a dollar amount?
well, whatever we need, yeah.
Okay. So I think, if we have a $150 rental fee plus $50 for food, $200 to hold an event, I think we can do that one time, and we could maybe do it 2 times, but without a budget, I think it just should be noted that without a budget, we're having to do this with sponsoring organizations, community donations, that kind of thing. And we could have a donation container by the food or something and, ask that way. But I think, thanks to several organizations, we'll be able to pull off the first one, maybe two, to do that. Do we want to discuss doing one on a Thursday, the 23rd, and one the Saturday, the 25th, and people's availability and interest in doing 2 in 1 week? That would be helpful for our committee to figure out if not our committee, our volunteer work group, I'm sorry.
Watch that.
Yeah, I have to watch my language all the time. So I would like to open that up for discussion. Thoughts on that, people's availability? I think we would definitely need minimally 5 to 7 people from the task force to be present, just to help with whatever needs to be helped, facilitating, organizing, welcoming, that kind of thing. So if we think we'll have enough people for 2 events in 1 week, then I'd like to hear that.
I just want to make a note that week of the 25th, which is that Saturday, I'll be out of town. So I just want to make that point.
Yeah, actually, me too. Can I suggest you ask for a show of hands of how many of us I can commit right now to the 23rd and how many to the 25th and see if we have enough?
The Thursday event, 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's plenty, I think, right? That was like 7 or 8. How about the 25th, this Saturday? The 25th, this Saturday.
And that's in the morning, did you say?
What time did you, like, 11 to 1?
Yeah, I can still do that.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we
think we're
could
still-
probably pull that off then. And then there are a few people not present here today that might be able to help as well. What about feedback just in general on doing 2 community events in 1 week?
I don't have any sort of problem with multiple events. I think, I mean, we're going to be under a long-term time crunch anyway, so getting some voices in is a good thing.
I also agree with the 2 weeks, or the 2 events in 1 week, because it really gives a little bit of flexibility for people to work around their work schedule. So I agree with that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think as long as we make sure we do the open meeting, or the meeting announcement, post the agenda, and make sure we have the agenda set the way we need it, and we have a chair for each meeting, we're okay.
So we're going to get around that by, it's not going to be a racial justice task force meeting. It's going to be an event sponsored by NCAM and NAACP and ACLU to talk about racial justice in Champaign County, and we will be present.
So even though we'll have majority of quorum there, well, you now have 20 members, so 11 is quorum,
Yes.
and 6 is majority of quorum. And if 6 people raise their hands on each one, that would mean that we shouldn't speak at those meetings, which might be difficult.
We can't speak even in small groups.
It would not with majority of quorum, 6 or more people.
Well,
And if anybody else were to resign in the meantime,
Specifically with, essentially, speaking is sort of not really, it's sort of beside the point. It's really not about speaking, it's about doing the work of our task. And, I mean, I think that we basically just have to post it. It's just that
Okay.
simple.
Yeah, I mean, an agenda can just be, small groups, open
Yeah.
dialogue,
I mean,
public
there's not,
participation.
well, in an agenda, I mean, it doesn't have to be as, I mean, it's, generally, people think of an agenda as it has to be, one, open meeting, minutes, all that stuff. It really doesn't have to be that. Essentially, if it's just open the meeting, I mean, basically what, I mean, the flyer really is almost enough. You just have to say, we're going to be talking about community justice, and I would just say small groups, big group, that's enough.
yeah, and if you just put the purposes to gather data about, or personal stories that relate to the Racial Justice Task Force exploration of race in the criminal justice system, something like that. And then we'd need to be sure that somebody who's there makes a 1 to 2 sentence minutes report that the discussion took place. It doesn't have to be super detailed, and write down the names of all the task force members who were there for attendance and the date, and I think we're probably okay.
Does the minutes have to be by the secretary, or it can be by
No.
anyone?
Let me interrupt. This, I realize I read the Open Meeting Act, and I've talked to the lawyer. But with the NAACP and the NCAM sponsor this, and some of us just happen to go there, and we break up into a small group, I don't see why we have to really take a minute or do anything for this open meeting. If we don't come collectively together, like 5 or 6 of us in one block area, and start talking about racial justice stuff, if we don't do that, I don't see why we have to go through all these minutes and these type of things. I just don't get it. Thank you.
Actually, I've often agreed and made the argument the same way that artist has made certainly when people start getting squirrely about, one time when I was on the city council in Urbana, someone at one of the schools wanted council members to come see how crowded the school was. Urbana City Council doesn't vote on schools. We weren't going to vote on anything, but the city attorney went ballistic when 3 of us showed up and insisted there was a problem. The easiest thing the best compromise is, even though it's silly, I don't know that you need to take minutes or anything, but when the city council goes on a tour of the city, the city puts out a press release just like they do for the announcement of meetings, just public notice. This is to announce that the 7 members of the Urbana City Council will be participating in a bus tour of the city, leaving the city building at 5:30 p.m. And the public isn't invited, there's no minutes taken, and that way, then nobody has to worry about if anybody talked. And I think and this isn't like, if NAACP were actually having a meeting that we had nothing to do with, and a bunch of us just happened to show up and they talked about justice issues, yeah, I think that's cricket, and people shouldn't worry about, oh, look who's here, somebody has to leave. But since we are really throwing this event, even if our name's not on the flyer, though I'm not sure why our name wouldn't be on the flyer, but if it's not, then I just think, just ask Kay Rhodes to publicly notice that racial task force members racial justice task force members will be attending the NAACP meeting at Church of the Living God on Thursday, June 23rd at such and such. And that way it's publicly noticed, and they post it just like a meeting notice. And then we should find out before the 23rd whether we really have to have any minutes, but I don't think we actually do. I think the important thing is to notify the public that possibly more than the majority of the quorum are going to be there.
You don't even have to have a contemporary or a contemporaneously taking of minutes. You could literally you could say, Joe, Fred, John, Betty, and Mike were there, and they talked about racial justice, and that's enough.
Hold on.
Well, so I have several comments. First of all, I must have misunderstood, because I thought that we were reaching out to other groups because we really wanted to make sure that people were aware of this and came to this, so that we really got broad input. But I feel this is being held so the Racial Justice Task Force gets input from the community about the nature of the struggles that are being endured and proposed priorities for us to focus on. This is to help guide our work. So I feel we should be on this flyer. I think there should be a press release. I'm hoping there'll be an article in the News Gazette. I don't think we hide it. I think this is my view, again, that these groups were co-sponsoring to help. I was hoping the Bar Association would be in there, as many groups as possible. So I think these are community, and then later we can say we reached out to the community for feedback. So I think the Racial Justice Task Force needs to be profiled. That's my own opinion. But secondly, I feel very strongly that we need to focus on, again, why we're doing this and what our charge is. Our charge is to examine racial disparity in the criminal justice system and propose solutions to redress that problem. This already comes to a conclusion. It says community dialogue on injustice in Champaign County. And I have to tell you, I think a lot of people, if they saw that, are not going to come. Okay. I would just say community dialogue on racial disparity in the criminal justice system. Yeah, well, even racial, I mean, I would say community dialogue on racial disparity in the criminal justice system. I mean, we can say racial justice, but then we get into if we start saying it's either just or unjust, we get people being antagonistic. And I believe we want to do is get people who right now maybe are antagonistic to get them to pull together as a community, all people. So I'm afraid that I just feel using the terms of our charge can help broaden that pool of people from which we want to get input. So yeah, so I'd say personally I would go with community dialogue on racial disparity in the criminal justice system. I profile that this is feedback for the Racial Justice Task Force, and I think that will get more people to come. I hope so.
And let me say this, because the very first one, these are just revisions, and you guys can see the very first one that we actually proposed last week. It actually said Racial Justice Task Force Community Dialogue, in big bold letters up here, you know. So what's your thought of that?
I like it.
Right here, like I said, voices for, but actually, and I can pull that up, the original, it said Racial Justice Task Force Community Dialogue. And we had the sponsors at the bottom, those type of things.
And
Does that sound a little better?
I do think so. I do think so, and I apologize, I was out of state when our last meeting, so I do apologize, for doing that.
And we do have one, I probably should have sent that one out, just emailed, and then, you know, then have nobody respond to it, then you guys could see that also. Then have better
I guess my question is, I mean, we need to start getting these flyers out sooner rather than later, so should we just, I mean, at some point, should we just have a vote on the flyer and go ahead and start putting it out? I mean, will we have time if we wait till the next meeting to have a vote on it?
Well,
Since we're just a volunteer work group, I'm not sure do we need a vote on a flyer?
Well, I guess technically it could be considered a publication of the Racial Justice Task Force.
Oh.
So that's that's my concern. And I mean, while I don't even like the Open Meetings Act, but I think it honestly stifles
Yeah.
a lot of dialogue
we
and
don't need to
required, you know, that would be important. But as far as just following it, since it's pretty clear, I mean, we're putting this out there, it's, I would say that we can also vote to task that group with coming up with an acceptable one and just trust you on it. But I would say we need to vote on that today because it's going to
Okay.
be a publication, and I don't want to wait till 2 weeks from
yeah, we
now
can't.
to.
Agreed, we can't wait. So I've heard we need to
I
definitely add,
I
yeah,
have a
sorry.
comment. The one that says here, Voices for Racial Justice, Community Dialogue, your stories, your struggle, your solutions, that's pretty neutral. There's nothing inflammatory about that. If in fact, following artists is suggesting we want to put someplace on here that the Racial Justice Task Force, put that someplace on this one, but there's nothing inflammatory, quote unquote, about this. But I think the other thing is we have to be realistic. When it comes around this issue, to think that the community is going to come together and speak in one voice is pie in the sky or whatever you want to call it, because there are too many people that are affected in different ways about it. So, so to say that the conversation, the meetings are to be able to hear different voices. And because there will be different voices, there will be disagreement. People will have one perception and other people will have other perceptions. I don't think it's our task, or it should even be our goal, to dissuade people from their point of view, as long as we're doing things that are fact-driven. These particular things is to hear people's stories and their struggles. So any attempt to censor that or to make it look like something that it's not is inappropriate to my way of thinking. And secondly, if that's the tone at the first meeting, we won't have anybody at the second or subsequent ones, particularly if we're asking for people's stories and their struggles and their solutions. And sometimes, depending on where you are on any issue, it's hard to hear the truth. It doesn't make it any less the truth, but for some people, it's hard to hear the truth. So, as I said, I think this particular flyer is pretty neutral. It's an invitation. It says who the sponsors are, Voices for Racial Justice. I don't, but if the body decides that the smaller group can decide on the final edit, that would be useful because it would allow the work to be done without coming back a second time.
So I think it's important that I make sure that I clarify what I said and that I'm not being misunderstood. What I am suggesting that we do is avoid language that suggests that we're attacking people. So when I say kind of a common ground of respect and openness and inviting voices, and there are voices in a lot of different sectors in this community. And so I agree with you that this again, I'd still probably put Racial Justice Task Force, Community Dialogue on Racial Disparity in the Criminal Justice System, because in way to do exactly what you've suggested, because there will be different views on what's happening as far as racial disparity, and I think we need to hear those. So I think it's very important, as you noted, to welcome all voices. And my fear is if there's something that suggests we've already arrived at certain conclusions before we've even gotten feedback, is going to actually suppress voices and also make it less likely we can get the change that I think many of us do recognize needs to occur.
I know we talked about this last meeting, so I don't want to stir up the whole thing again, but, I said our charge is criminal justice system, and this does not in any way, shape, or form indicate that. Now, I realize that given the nature of racial injustice in our community, it's highly unlikely that the only people who show up are going to be complaining about employment discrimination or housing discrimination. And I know some people said they want to hear those stories too, and okay, that's nice, but I really do think if the purpose of this is to get feedback to help the work of this committee or this task force, something on the brochure should say criminal justice, and there's nothing here that tells me that you're even looking for people's stories about the criminal justice system. I think it's a really good flyer. I don't mean to be critical, but under your stories, your struggles, your solutions, it'd be really good if it had something about injustice in the criminal justice, or something about the criminal justice, even if you don't want to use the word injustice, something about the criminal justice system. Now, I had suggested at the last meeting that I wrote to Sarah about this, that we just throw out some words. People were concerned that, oh, we just don't want people to come talking about the police, was to just list words like bail, sentencing, policing, school suspensions, and other issues, or something like that, just to give people some idea of what in the world this is. And so if they have concerns about school suspensions or bail or policing or anything, that they'll know that this is where they can come talk about it. And right now, I'm not sure that this looks, I mean, this could look like, oh, there's just another one of those things where everybody talks about racism and nothing happens. And there certainly are enough of those that many people are wary of them. So letting them know that it's our task force seeking their input about the criminal justice system I think that'd be a good idea.
I would just like to say that I agree, specifically with that it needs to say something about the criminal justice system. Obviously, racism in society as a whole is a huge issue. It's a huge, wide-ranging issue, and we do want to narrow that. But at the same time, I don't want to step on what anybody's going to say. So I think even making suggestions is probably narrowing what people are going to say a little bit too much. So I think as long as it just says criminal justice system, be as neutral as possible. Let them decide what the issues are. I don't even want to make suggestions. I'd like to see what they suggest. So that's.
criminal justice system, probably should be on the flyer. I mean, that's not a big deal. I mean, yeah. And, okay, and what we want to emphasize that the racial justice task force, that's what I'm hearing. Kind of like what I mentioned that the flyer would say, racial justice task force community dialogue. Is that okay? Okay, thank you. Yep.
I took some notes here, artists, if you want these. And we want to add ACLU as a sponsor and probably the Racial Justice Task Force. I don't know if we have to be listed as a sponsor, right, if we're labeled at the front, at the top.
I think Artis's idea was that just the racial justice task force.
Yep. And do we want to offer some suggested topics? Court, bail, bond, police, arrests, school to prison pipeline?
I think not.
No? All right.
I think when we say on the criminal justice system, all of those are part of it. And I think I don't think we have to be that directed, because then some people will think to the exclusion of other parts of the criminal justice system.
And do we want to add one little goal of like, come provide your feedback to help, the Racial Justice Task Force work, or one little sentence
I
or
have an
something
idea,
like that?
what the words you were saying there, you can
Yeah.
just how to make this shorter. Have the sponsor at the top, Voices for Racial Justice, and then if you want to have community dialogue, and then just have Champaign County Racial Justice Task Force seeks your input about the criminal justice system, and then you've got your stories, your struggles, your solutions. So in fact, you could even take, I don't know if you want, like you just have community dialogue, and then right after that, put Champaign County Racial Justice Task Force. Actually, Lynn
Seeks
had the
your-
language a couple minutes ago.
Yeah. Seeks your input on racial disparities in the criminal justice system.
And then your stories, your
And that
struggles, your
mentions Champaign
solutions.
County too, which helps
Yeah.
narrow it.
Yeah, definitely say Champaign County Racial
yeah.
Justice Task Force, so they know who we are.
And are we looking, so we've got one that has the justice symbol and one that doesn't. Are there opinions on that?
Excuse me, Marion, I just.
The conversation to just have the smaller group do it.
Oh, great. Let's do
Yeah, I
that.
think right.
Here's what I would suggest. I mean, if anybody else has any input that they want to give the smaller group, now would be the time. And if that's not the case, then I would move that we task the small volunteer group with finalizing the flyer with the information they've been given.
All right,
Yeah.
so we need a second for that motion.
Second.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
So we will email the flyer out, the small group will email it out to you guys as well as to Kay as for an agenda, as soon as we finalize that.
Yep.
And what was the time? Did we decide time yet, or?
Oh,
I'm
11
jumping
to
ahead.
1 for the Saturday, June 25th, and 6:30 to 8:30 on the 23rd. And so there will be two flyers. Just take note, right, because one will have the Salem information and that date, and one will have,
Hoping that we just do it all in one flyer.
oh, great, even better. Yep, there will be all in one flyer.
All right.
Perfect.
I was just curious, are we going to put any flyers in Spanish?
Do we have someone on the task force that could translate?
Yes?
Then I think we should.
Okay, send me a copy. I'll get it
Okay,
translated.
that'd be great. Thanks, Sam.
Can you put that in English on one side and Spanish on the other side? Is that what you're thinking?
Nice, yep.
We could, but if it was posted up somewhere, they probably wouldn't
Oh.
turn it over to see the other side.
Okay.
I also might not be able to be there on the 25th. I'm just looking at my calendar, but I think we have enough people, so we'll go with the flow.
I have one other question about the flyer. Will this in any way be posted on social media?
Well, we're doing go ahead.
Well, it's a publication. We're allowed to to put it out. It's just a way of notifying, as long as it's with the approval of the whole group. I think the other thing that we need to vote on is specifically how we publish it. So we need to just vote on publishing on social media, which I would suggest is very important, because if we can basically scan this in, you know, and if we can do a color and scan it in and try and get it around Facebook as much as possible, get it around, you know, tweet it out, whatever, I would say. But I think we do need to vote on sort of how we're publishing it. So it just needs to go, you know, so somebody would have to move. So I move that we publish it both by posting it around town, handing out flyers, and posting it on whatever social media site is available.
Could you add our website to that? It has to be on the county website.
Yes, and the county website. That's obviously required. Sorry, I guess I should.
To add the county board website to the flyer. Okay,
No,
so,
you don't have to add the county board website to the flyer. The flyer has to be posted on the county board website.
but do we,
When we send it to Kay, that'll happen.
got it.
We have to post the open meeting on the website and where we would meet. And we can go overboard, but not underboard. But on the county board website, we should put the flyer, copy the flyer on there.
That'll be part of our agenda when we send it to Kay.
Okay.
Okay,
Can we add print media as well? I mean, not limit it just to social media.
So are you moving to amend my motion?
I'm moving to amend your motion to include print media as well as social media and flyers.
There may need to be someone who can speak for the group. Someone from established media are going to have questions, perhaps.
Haha.
I'll be there.
I don't mean at the meeting. It may be, you may want to hope that they would ask you about it beforehand.
Prior? Okay.
Yeah. Does it have to be Sam, or could it be one of us from
If
the smaller
anyone would
group?
like to volunteer to do that, I'm open to that.
I mean, it might be good for Artis or I, since we've been planning to be I mean, so actually, that's a good point. Should we have a contact person on the flyer?
I think that's probably a good idea.
Yeah.
Just if you need more information, please contact.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3, not it. No, I'm just kidding. It could be both of us, if you want to do that, if you want to put either of us or both.
And if we want to be young and hip, there really should be a hashtag somewhere.
Yeah, we're going to hashtag it.
okay, well, in addition to that, is there any, are people open to asking it to be a PSA on radio then?
I don't know, so do you mean the event?
Yes.
Or no, like advertising for the
No,
event?
the event, to announce the event.
Yeah.
Oh, to announce
As
the
a
event,
PSA, right,
Yeah.
right. So in addition to, so that's a friendly amendment to the friendly
Okay.
amendment. So, yeah, to
All
have it.
media.
All media, there
All
you go.
media.
I would ask to sort of clarify my motion. So I move that
I think
that all members of the task force be empowered to promote promote all this and future meetings by spreading the word and making sure that flyers are distributed in all ways, including all media. That was an awful motion, and I apologize.
second.
Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor of creating a flyer that could be printed, published in a variety of different media outlets, in addition to Facebook and a variety of social media, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
One more quick question. we'll email out the flyer, and then if people could directly let me know, or Artis, or both of us, who they're gonna send it to, how, or the contacts that they have. So if, you know, if you've got a radio contact, so that we know that that's covered and that you've got that, or other things, that would be very helpful to have specific, you know, contacts and media, whatever, outlets assigned to people. We really need, I think, the whole committee, or the whole task force to really be advertising this and promoting it. And so if you could just keep us posted on who you're sending it to, and that would be helpful. Thank you.
On that note, I just wanted to say that I think it's important we remember that the volunteer group that stepped up to kind of consider our thoughts on what these should be is still just a volunteer group, and that these meetings are really ours, and we need to put in equal amounts of time and effort that they're putting in, at least from now on, to get these promoted, and also to be there and really support the community dialogue.
Yeah, before we get off this community dialogue, I think that we need to ask the county for some money. I mean, I think that, you know, we got different organizations that's really willing to make a contribution. They have less money than the county. So I'm just going to make a motion that we actually, let me back up here because I'm not sure how much, but I put it this way. I make a motion that we ask the county board for $500 to assist with the gathering information for the Racial Justice Task Force.
I would like to offer that up just for discussion for a moment.
Do you want to go first?
No, I'll let, please.
I think it behooves us to ask what that entails first, because if we have money, there's an accounting that we're responsible for. And I really think we should ask first what that would mean if we got money and what we would have to do. It's nice to think we would do it, but I think we better check first.
I guess what I would say is, number one, we can, I mean, since we're asking the county board, we're going to need to be more specific, specifically, you know, and so at the same time, I also know how county boards and government works, so we should ask for more than we actually expect to get. So asking for $500 sounds nice if they give us the $500, but I think if we ask for $500, we might get, you know, $100 or.
That's true.
I fully support what you've said, Artis, but I think that we need money for other reasons. And I think we'll probably only have one shot at getting some money. So we would need to talk about what we need money for. We need support, too. I don't think, other than maybe writing the press release, but all the stuff that goes with, you know, getting it out, et cetera, we need to be confident we're going to get support services. And I know we're getting some, but I really think that we need to figure out, and it's hard because we aren't, unfortunately, at the point where we're in subcommittees and really, you know, digging into the hard work that's going to be needed to complete the work of the task force. But that is going to be labor intensive, and if we need some help, I think it would be fruitful to discuss now, because we don't want to keep coming back and saying, well, we want 500 now. Now we want 3,000 for research assistants. So I would recommend some, you know, whether we come up with the final number next meeting or, you know, whatever, but this wasn't put on the agenda, but we can discuss it probably now. But I do feel we need more support, including financial support.
I was going to say, going back and looking at what the county board did in terms of assembling us or inviting us to be part of the task force, you know, they were very clear in not supporting us. They were very clear in not allotting any money. And I think we need to keep that in mind, too. That's not to say we don't need the money, I know that, but they knew that we needed the money. They knew that we needed the support from day one, and they didn't give it to us from the very beginning. And I think we need to think about that moving forward too. And I'm not sure what I'm implying here, okay, but what I'm saying is that, are we going to go to them and ask the same group of people that didn't initially give us any money or support for money and support at this point? I think you're correct. We have to be totally prepared with some solid reasons that they hadn't thought of 6 months ago. So I guess what I'm saying is I don't think it was an oversight on their part.
I think, Lynn had a really good point. I mean, I agree with what David just said too, that we probably can only ask once, if we'll even say yes at all. And I don't think we're ready to put together the compelling, I don't know about the rest of you, but I still don't know where we're going with all this. I'm hoping that at the June 30th meeting of the task force, which is is that right, June 30th? Yeah, which is, I think, when I'm not going to be here, as it turns out, but at that meeting, that we'll have gotten the feedback from those two forums, and that then maybe we'll have some idea of what, maybe what direction we're going, but it might very well be that, I mean, I agree with artists that we should be asking them for money, but I think if we can go to them with a proposal for, this is specifically what we need funds for, we maybe be able to persuade them to do it. And I don't think we're ready for that yet, and we might very well not be ready. I don't even know if we're ready June 30th. We might very well not be ready until July or August, when we have a clear picture of what it is we're doing and then what we'll need the money for.
I agree, at least to the extent that I don't think we're ready now. I think in order to do this, we need to have at least, a couple of these under our belt and be able to say, here's what we got out of it. Here's the costs that were involved. We need you to pay for 4 of these in the future. They'll be held at this place, this place, this place, and this place. And here's and in addition, any other issues that like Lynn was talking about as far as support down the road. And that's a big conversation that we're going to have, and I don't know that we're ready for it now.
Then my only concern, though, would be if we wait for the community input, and then we decide what subcommittees we're going to have, and then we say, oh, actually, we're going to need this and this, and I get this. That's very logical, but then I know, then we'll have to wait and go to the county, and they may not decide immediately, and so that's another month or 2, and then we have to hire interns or whatever, and we're talking about starting work in October or November. Which honestly, if that's what we're going to do, I'd probably move to adjourn right now. We can't wait that long to start working. So I think there have been other racial justice task forces. I don't even know, like in Urbana, what it entailed to do some of the work that Ryan, you've been focusing on. But I'm wondering if we can make an informed judgment about support needs, either from other groups' experiences. And this is a question, it's not really a proposal. But all I would just want to flag is the issue of delay.
I think there's some, excuse me, some things we haven't considered. If someone here were to volunteer to go in and talk, I know that Patsy Petrie had said that we have support from the office here, from K Roads. We need to find out what that support is, because it may be that we have things covered that we don't know about yet, and that we won't have to go into having a treasury and an audit and all those things that might or might not come with money. So there might already be some things built into this. If we ask instead for the county board to cover things that we need done, for instance, if we need help writing a report and we need someone to do certain things, we might not have to ask for money as much as to ask for tasks to be supported and completed. There might already be something there for us. I just think it would be good to check.
Esther used the term persuade the board, and I thought that was perfect, because it's not really a request. You know what I'm saying? We need to persuade them. And if we're going to persuade them, it can't simply be, we need this much money. That's not persuading anybody. So I think, we have to approach this in the sense of what are we going to have to do to make our case? I guess that's what I was trying to say all along.
Yeah, I agree with, I think we've got one chance, one opportunity to make a case for some funding and support. I think we should find out what that entails and what's included in that and what support we already have. And I'd also like to push back a little on the kind of formalized report outcome that I think maybe many of us have in our mind, or maybe was the expectation. I mean, the Criminal Justice Task Force did a wonderful full report, and 1 to 3 things have been adopted out of 10. I think part of our task is to push on these things that have already been done in our county and to bring, awareness and notice to these things, that the work that's already been done. We've had so many wonderful presentations that they've collected the data. I don't think we need research assistance personally, because I think the data is already there. We might need somebody who can weed through it all and help us with that. But I don't think that I don't know that a 35-page report is something that I think will be meaningful and persuade the county board to do anything with, because it doesn't appear that that's been helpful in the past. I think that what's already existing out there is a good starting place for us, and maybe our committees or our subcommittees or work groups could really dive into what's existing and how we can start now with things like statements of support that Ryan's drafted and other things, so that we're not waiting till, October to have any sort of outcome of this task force, because we just can't, I don't think we can wait. And I think there's a lot we could be doing in the meantime. But that's just a personal opinion, and I have absolutely zero previous task force experience, so.
I just have one quick technical question. Who's paying for the paper for our flyers?
Oh,
Or
I
can
guess
we
one of
get
the
that from-
sponsors, I mean, in my head, the flyer is gonna be electronic 90% of the time. I can't envision that many places where we could hang it besides, maybe some church bulletins, but even that, you send it electronically to them and they put it in, so, I mean, so far, Artis and I have donated our ink and paper, but,
Most
county board,
grocery
I mean.
stores also have, bulletin boards to hang. What? Yeah.
again, would love you guys' input and support on getting those out there in places that you think that it would be helpful. Thanks.
Post office?
Sound like I'm getting consensus that we need to look at what type of funding we really need overall before we go to the county board. Right now, I feel that we do have something that we can present to them, some expenses that they can look at. But I do understand that since they are very reluctant, well, not reluctant, they wasn't planning on giving us anything, that when we do make a proposal, we need to make it, I guess, clear exactly what we need, because it's going to be this only one time. So having said that, I'm kind of glad we brought up the discussion, and I hope that we put this on the agenda. We may have to start another committee to look into different areas where we may need funding. If we can't get the county board to do the printing for us, we may need some printing costs, or we may need some interns. I'm not sure, I'm personally, I'm not sure exactly what we're gonna need funds for. So maybe, in the near future, we have to get someone started on that, because if we do, we need to get it going right away. So having said that, I would like to rescind my motion with the approval of the second. And I also want to put on the agenda that we talk about the funding that we may need for this task force to go forward.
I just have one question about the funding. Are there any alternatives besides getting funding from the board that we could explore? Because as already been mentioned, that the county board has been pretty clear on not having interest in supporting funding. So can we explore other opportunities to seek funding even from fundraising or from the community?
I would, I mean, I would say, yes, we should, I mean, artists mentioned putting together another committee or group of volunteers. I think that's a really good idea, but basically we have two specific issues. Number one, figure out how much money we're gonna need and what we're gonna spend it on. And then the second one is work on gathering the money.
And even having said that, as mentioned before, we have to make the case, whether that's to the county board or to the community or wherever we draw funding from. So I think we really do need to make an effort at making a case and preparing to deliver that to anywhere that we seek funds from.
And I'd like to add that although I think it's important for us to make a case and possibly have outlined what the funds would be used for, but I think it's perfectly appropriate to ask the county board first. They constantly, the state, municipalities, and everybody constantly complain about unfunded mandates from higher up. They created this task force, and the idea that they would not invest a cent, but they are through the support from K. But the idea that they did that with the notion that they did not intend to support it in any way, and I think I said this the first night, that's just, then it's just sort of some gesture, and it's not sincere. So in order for them to support and put their money literally where their mouth is, I think we should ask them, because that is in fact, and not only that, we're asking them for the community's dollars. This is for the Champaign County community, and it's their dollars that would support this. So it's not as though it's the county board's person. Right, and we're part of that community. So I think it's completely appropriate, once we have a thought-out proposal and the things that need to be supported, is completely appropriate that they would be the first people that we would approach, in my opinion. Oh, and then I know we've passed this, and I came in a little late. I am on the board of directors for the Independent Media Center, and at our last meeting, we did vote to provide our space as a place to have a community meeting for a dialogue about racial justice. So, and at the time, I suggested perhaps a weekend, because at that time, we didn't have a weekend day. But whatever day we choose, then we can look at the calendar, because it's been approved that we can use the space. And that's in
For free?
Urbana. Oh, sure, for free.
Nice.
What we're doing here is completely consistent with our mission.
Yeah. Could we check June 25th if, because both churches right now have fees associated with them. I don't know if you were here for
Okay.
that. And so we are between sponsors, I think, right now we're good for covering one, but if we could have the second one for free, and in Urbana, that would be great. Thank you.
The Space of Love
Like
Corner
11
is,
to 1, we were thinking about, sorry.
sorry, the Space of Love Corner is donated. There's no fee.
Oh, I thought you emailed me about the $150 fee.
I thought I emailed you and corrected that.
Oops. Hey. Hallelujah. Everything's free. Way to go. Thanks. Either way, though, I think if you don't mind checking on the 25th, and we were thinking 11 to 1, but if there's,
Okay.
if they needed at different times, and
check that.
then we could know that as soon as possible and update the flyer and go. Like tomorrow.
Yes, I will check tomorrow. I'll check tomorrow.
All right, and thanks, Henry, please pass on the thanks from us to them on that.
I would just like to suggest the possibility that we may actually also be able to hold some sort of outdoor thing, like in a park, just as a way to, I mean, I know that's not super ideal, but it would also be free. It might be more open and inviting to more people if we did that.
Don't we have some meetings where we don't have space for our task force, like this room isn't available? We could meet at a park.
As long as it doesn't rain.
That's right. Or not 100 degrees.
And Ryan needs an outlet.
I like the park idea in a lot of ways, but I don't know if I'd want to talk at a park about things I was worried about. It's just kind of open.
Well, and it was just an idea
Yeah.
for maybe like one or two as opposed, I mean, obviously some of them are gonna have to be indoors, some of them are already gonna be indoors. It might be more, some people might feel more open to talking in that kind of environment, and, you know, we wanna encourage as many voices as possible.
Do we have a way of capturing what people say so we can bring it back and share it with the whole group?
Yeah, our plan is to have a scribe at every small group, and that could be one of us or another volunteer that we would identify that in the beginning. We'll lay out the format of the event, and we'll have all the questions written out already, and so we can gather it that way. After this weekend, I'm going to ask Lynn and Alex to help on kind of how that would look as research questions, like what do we need to ask the scribes to specifically, you know, is there some like, you know, keywords or, you know, quotes or sentences, like what do we want from them so that we can use it as data and be research people too.
I can get some of that equipment, the video recording equipment. I finally got over there. Now I've
Okay.
gotten some training.
All right.
And then they help, anything I take back, they help if I don't know what to do with it.
Okay.
So if the equipment was available, I could record it.
Yeah, I think we decided that it'd be great to have the equipment there and the option for people to tell their story voluntarily, but not to video like small group discussions, because that could be out of people's
okay.
comfort zones, you know? So we could record like the introductions, you know, thanks everybody, and we're here to do this and blah, blah, blah. And then we could have it over off to the side. And if you're willing to share your own story or your own feedback or your own frustrations or whatever, your positive, you could do that individually. And then it's voluntary, and they're electing to do that. So if that's possibility for you, that would be awesome.
I think it would be.
Yeah.
And what I was thinking about was if some of these people who are talking maybe needed a little more refinement to fit maybe a shorter space of time, then we can also meet over at the television office, which is, you walk through the city council chambers, and it's back there in the corner. And they said, I could also meet with people over there. So if it was somebody who just needed to do it again so that they were, you know, a little more focused or whatever. But, yeah, that's a possibility, sure. I
Okay.
mean, there's a microphone, a handheld, or if I'm close enough to them, there doesn't need to be a microphone. If I talk, if I were asking questions, then I would need to be mic'd too. But anyway, it's a really cool little camera. It wouldn't be a problem to tote around. I just have to arrange to get it, just see if it's available.
Thank you, that would be great. And even some, what do they call it, B-roll or something of like the event from afar kind of could lead to something down the road if we created something.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Ellen. Oh, one last question about these events. I'm so sorry.
It's never the last.
Thinking about childcare, you know, I have a teenage daughter. She's got several friends that are babysitters. Like, should we offer that, and would that be okay, or is there some liability in that? Ah, the lawyers. I didn't say anything. So not a good idea? All right.
I guess semi-relevant, I just wanted to let you guys know that discussion of the Racial Justice Task Force and how the Champaign County Bar Association can help will be on their agenda for next Wednesday's monthly meeting, so. Well, and if they're not, I mean, if they're not doing these, that's fine. I mean, there can be, I mean, there are many other I would also like to encourage as many members specifically.
Great. Ryan, would you like to update us on the statement?
Yeah, as hopefully everyone saw, I emailed out a draft statement. I received a couple of comments on it and tweaked it just a bit. What I'd like to do is put it up on the big screen and that screen over there. We can, I didn't print it out. We can discuss, tweak it and whatnot. Unfortunately, we can't vote on it tonight because I forgot to ask for it to be on the agenda in advance notice. But what Sam said we could do is discuss kind of you know, you verbally show your support or whatnot for what we've come up with, and then we'll open up to a formal vote next meeting in 2 weeks.
If we could get whatever we, you know, not obviously we've agreed on, but, you know, whatever draft, if we could get that listed on the agenda for next week, so we can, so it'll say approval of, you know, the following resolution would be, I think, helpful.
Yes. All right.
I'll read it out loud. The Champaign County Racial Justice Task Force commends the Urbana City Council for its recent action to reduce the disparate impacts city fines have on minority groups. The City Council acted on a specific recommendation by the Urbana Traffic Stop Data Task Force, which found clear racial disparities in the number of traffic stops, the number of violations cited, and the amount of fines for those violations. The data-driven decision to reduce the minimum fine for possession of small amounts of marijuana was made after additional research, public input, and discussion. The Racial Justice Task Force supports the City of Urbana's continued efforts to act on the recommendations of the Traffic Stop Data Task Force and urges other public bodies in Champaign County to take similar steps to identify and resolve racial injustices in the local criminal justice system. The two things that I changed in the past week were adding Champaign County and local criminal justice system instead of just criminal justice system.
I would just like to say that I like it.
Great work.
I want to go on record and say I like it also. And one of the things I do like about it is that it's kind of indirectly asking the county to take us seriously, you know, and hopefully they would act on some of our recommendations. So I like it.
Do we have, can we take this directly to them and read it at the next meeting as part of public participation or on the agenda?
I think that's something we definitely want to do. Also go to City of Urbana, show support for them, perhaps City of Champaign, What's that? News, yeah, we would certainly send it to the News Gazette and other media outlets that you guys would see fit. I think that would be important.
I think as we adopt it, it could be a press release
Yeah.
for us, for our task force.
I didn't get a chance to respond, but the only input that I have is the city fines have on minority, I would say minority populations instead of groups.
I don't have a problem with that, if everyone's okay with that.
And well done. Thank you, Ryan, for
Sure.
doing this.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like this a lot. You took everything in terms of our input at the last meeting and really synthesized it very, very nicely. And it doesn't become just a vote pro or con that one issue, but it really makes a statement that we're in support of them moving forward on a variety of issues.
I think it also does a good job of sort of minimizing the marijuana aspect to it, because, I mean, it's not going to help our cause to just come across looking like a bunch of hippies, so.
That was the goal. I held off on mentioning marijuana for the, I think, third or fourth sentence, and really focused on racial disparities, racial justice, acting on recommendations, based on everyone's statements last week.
Thank you. I think it also is forward-looking and says that we're not done. I like it very much. The tone's good.
Any other comments? Okay, so what we're looking to do is finalize this and put it on the agenda for next week, or our next meeting. All right. Moving to our next agenda item, task force comments. Anything pertinent that anyone would like to bring to the table?
I just wanted to comment that last time we met, we had quite a few people who were talking about not really knowing exactly how booking systems worked, and if it might be of any value for myself or any others who would be interested in trying to determine exactly how booking decisions are made, or if we're at a point where we want to do that.
I was actually, I was actually talking before the meeting with a few members, and I was wanting to ask your specific input. I don't know if you saw the recent article, Ryan, where was that? The
From
ProPublica?
ProPublica, I
What?
believe. ProPublica?
ProPublica?
I heard it on NPR, but ProPublica produced a report that Kevin's talking about.
I saw it on Gawker because I like my news sleazy, so.
I just read the News Gazette, I'm sorry.
Okay, so basically, there was an article, and it's a long-form piece, and it's specifically about a specific algorithm that's sold to various government agencies that that is used in booking, pre-sentencing, parole, probation, all kinds of stuff, and it's essentially it does disfavor African Americans specifically. So, and the software was by a company called North Point, I believe, and I was just unsure, Susan, specifically if you're aware of any specific software or anything that we use in Champaign County.
I'm actually not aware that they're using any, but that doesn't mean they're not.
And
But I'm
that
not
was
aware of any, yeah.
and that was my thought. And I mean, because I know I get a pre-sentencing report, but I don't know where it comes from, and I don't know, and it doesn't provide recommendations. I don't know if somebody else gets recommendations, but whether the prosecutor's office is acting on recommendations or anything like that. So
I can speak to the pre-sentence process, at least as to what it used to be, but I can also find out what it is. There is no algorithm for that in the state system, and they don't make recommendations to the court or defense or government.
Okay.
At the local level. Federal level is completely different.
Yeah.
But
I guess, and part of my concern is, like, I'm a small part of the process, and so you know, I don't get to talk to the county sheriff. I don't talk to the police that do the actual bookings. I don't know specifically what programs might be bought. I specifically would like to know whether we use an algorithm in determining, bond amounts, bail amounts, whatever the risk is. But basically, the article showed some people one person whose crime, both first-time offenders kind of thing. One person whose crime was clearly more severe and were white, so their risk was considered a 3, while somebody who's black and also first-time offender, their risk was like 9. And it based it off of things like, do you come from a 2-parent household kind of stuff, and so there was clearly, maybe not in intent, but clearly in practice was very obvious racial bias. So I guess first I would like to say that I would suggest that everybody read that, because I think it is essential to our mission. And then secondly, just basically to answer your question, Susan, I would like to hear as much information as possible, specifically about how the process works, because we hear from people who want to change the system and everything, but we also need to come at this from a place that's informed. And like I said, I'm even as a defense attorney, I'm still a relatively small part of the process. I would like to know, here are the actual steps, and not basic. Well, first there's booking, because half of us have no idea what booking even is, and so I would like that we figure out some way to have a presentation that says, here's the actual criminal justice process.
I can't guarantee that I can get someone to do it, but I might get them to be able to talk to me to prepare something to present, possibly. I'm just, if it was worth pursuing, I thought I would pursue it if people wanted that to be done. And then, again, I can't promise someone will come, but I think I can convince them to talk to me about it. We're talking to each other.
But either of those would be great for me. I just know that I would like more information. I just know that I would like more information, and I would guess that means other people would like more information as well on just how it works, because people don't know what the people in the criminal justice system actually go through, and I think honestly that's part of the story. It's also essential to know how we change things that need to be changed.
So I guess I would like to ask that be put on the agenda
Okay.
sometime. And then I'll work on trying to get some information from the justice system folks themselves.
You want to add it to the agenda
Yeah.
to discuss, or
Next,
you
to report next
to
time.
report next? Okay. All right.
Kevin, can you email out the article to everyone, please?
I can, but despite how much it may disgust you, please do not respond.
Thank you. We won't.
I just wanted to say that I certainly appreciate the effort that was made at putting this flyer together and getting the word out to the community. I don't know if you all are aware that there was a meeting at Free Will Morning Star Church regarding the school resource officer and the racial disparities between students going to jail within the Union 4 school district, and there's a federal investigation going on. I wasn't aware of that meeting because the word wasn't out to the community, and I feel like that could have been very helpful and even useful to our role here as the task force. And so I'm grateful that we are making every effort, and I hope that we go to length at getting the word out to the community about the times that we will be meeting and the locations that we'll be meeting. So thank you very much, Artis and Sarah.
Yeah, that was the subject I was going to bring up, was the school resource officers and the federal investigation into the arrest this has been a concern of mine. I know it is Henry's. I'm trying to think of some other people we talked to that are on the group, that the school system is a pipeline into the criminal justice system. And when you're talking about students being arrested at how people want.
Yeah, and to build on that, other communities in Illinois are urging their school systems to remove police officers. And in some places like Chicago, there are police stations in the high schools. And the idea was initially that, oh, well, that would just reduce the time it takes to arrest a kid. But instead, it just increased their numbers drastically. And instead of creating a safe environment, a feel of safety, it was the opposite. So this kind of goes to like future agenda items, and just like I would like to urge us to be thinking about groups or organizations or people who could speak to some of the solutions that other communities or even in our own community that are already happening, or that are in the works, or that are working in other places. Because we are surely not. I know we're not the first community addressing this topic. So I think in addition to hearing all the data of what's going wrong in Champaign County, I would really love for us to be also getting information on things that can be done to approach that and make adjustments. Again, similar, I think a lot of it's already found in the work that's been done in with the Criminal Justice Task Force. And, maybe if Lynn and if you guys wanted to know more about restorative justice as a solution, and, what a deeper insight on that, because I know you had to kind of breeze through it when you did an overview, that might be something we could add to the agenda. I'd offer that up.
Just to let you know, on the restorative justice / restorative practices, the ideal is to become a restorative city, in my opinion, a restorative county. And when you get restorative practices, which is something we could talk about if the group is interested, it's integrated not only into criminal justice systems, but it's integrated into school systems. It's integrated into social work. It is integrated into families. It's just such a uplifting and promising approach to life, quite frankly. So much so that it's turned my life upside down and inside out. I'm pursuing my master's in it. So, we can talk about this later, but I'd be happy if you want to talk to the group about that. I think down the road it'd be something that could be beneficial to our task force.
Yeah, because the good news is there are some good things happening in our community and around us. The Champaign School District has a lot of issues, but they also have several schools adopting restorative practices and reducing their suspensions drastically, 60% last year. Garden Hills, the suspension rate went down. So there are good things happening. So I think we also want to, learn from that and use that data to drive our decisions.
Okay. As we get different responses back from the community, this past week we received some mail from from an individual that was incarcerated. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is how is it that we can best utilize that information for our task, but then also being very mindful of some of the information that is disclosed within those letters. So what I would like to think about is possibly getting a few volunteers who might be interested in reviewing some of that information and possibly synthesizing it for the rest of the group to engage.
Yeah, and it's kind of legally, they're looking for legal support and help, is what I took from it.
Okay.
So just to put that out, on that particular, just
Yeah.
on their case, so. Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be good, because we don't. I think Sam was being mindful of not wanting to put it out in the public record, right?
That
This
is
personal
correct.
letter, which is a good point that I didn't think of.
All right. If anyone else would be interested, just send me an email. All right, last item on the agenda, adjournment. All right,
Second.
we are done.
Kevin, you can't always move to adjourn.
It's okay.
Okay. Good meeting.
Let's say 7:50.